Okay, today we are doing notes number 28. This is our third section of our linear equations unit, and today we're going to talk about solving multiple step equations. Now, before we can solve these equations, you have to make sure you know how to simplify expressions. So I'd like you to try to do these four parts all on your own. So please hit pause and try to simplify these expressions, meaning do all the math that you could do on your own. All right, go ahead and try that. Okay, let's see how you did. So on part A, you should know that hopefully when we have a number outside of parentheses like this means to distribute. So you're multiplying 3 times the 7y and 3 times the negative 5. So 3 times 7y, that would be 20. Whoops, how's that a 20? 20, come on now. This is not being nice to me. Here we go. 21y. And then 3 times negative 5, that would be negative 15. Now, hopefully you did not try to subtract these, because you cannot subtract 21y and negative 15. Those are unlike terms. In order to add or subtract these, they have to have the exact same letter or no letter at all. So therefore, you cannot do anything more than just leave it like this. This would be simplified all the way. So over here you could see some more distributing. This is negative 2 times negative x, and this is negative 2 times 8. So negative 2 times negative x, well, negative times a negative is a positive. That's just 2x. And negative 2 times 8, that is negative 16. Again, you cannot combine these, so this is simplified all the way. Here, no distributing, but hopefully you recognize that this 5x and this 10x, those are terms, so you can combine those. So if you have 5x's and 10x's, you have a total of x. Now, do not do anything with the exponents. We are not multiplying here. We're simply adding, like counting. I have 5 of these things, I get 10, so now I have 15x's. And this box this in because it's separate than the other one, so I use circles for the and boxes for these. These are like terms, so negative 4 and 2 would make negative 2. Now I cannot go any further because I cannot combine x's and non-x's, so therefore this is our final answer. And this last one's got a lot of things going on. So first of all, you see distributing, and if we did our operations, you should always multiply first. So this is a 5 here, and I'm going to distribute it into the y and the 4. So I'm not going to do anything else with any of these numbers, so I'm going to leave the 4 out front. Now I'm doing the 5 times y, that's plus 5y. 5 times 4, so that distributing there is plus 20. And now I'm just going to rewrite the stuff that's there. Negative 5 plus 6y. So I distributed first. Now I look for like terms that I could combine. So this plus 5y would be the same as this plus 6y. I could combine those to get 6 plus 5, 11y. And then these just numbers that do not have variables, they're called constants. That's our fancy term for it. We've talked about that. Those are 4, 20, and negative 5. So just think about adding those up. 4 and 20 is 24. Minus 5 is 19. So they'd be plus 19. Whoops. And that would be your final answer because, again, you cannot combine those. So you have to make sure you understand that before you can solve today's equations. So if you had a little trouble with that, please rewind it and watch again and see if it makes sense to you. All right, so here are the steps you have to know in order to solve these equations. So I really want you to read these steps when you're doing the you-try problems and do them in an order that I teach you. So when you're solving big equations, the first thing you should always do is simplify both sides of the equation if needed. So just like we learned above, you need to simplify things before you could solve them. So in order to simplify expressions or equations, you should distribute first if you see parentheses. So notice it says if there's parentheses. They're not always going to have to distribute, but if you see parentheses, distribute. And then you need to combine like terms. Okay, only terms on the same side of the equal sign. I'll show you that in a minute. So if terms could combine, like x's and x's, then combine those. That is not solving. That is just simply simplifying like we did before. And now once you simplify the equations, now simply solve them. And these steps you already know. We already talked about solving equations. We're going to eliminate an algebraic term, so undo terms if there is one on both sides. Remember, you can't have a letter on both sides of the equal sign. Eliminate that, and we're going to use operations to eliminate things. Then we're going to isolate the algebraic term by getting it all by itself. Get the algebraic term by itself using inverse or opposite operations. And then finally we're going to solve. Just get the variable all alone. And again, we're using inverse operations. So notice that we use inverse or opposite operations when we're solving, not when we're simplifying. So that's important. All right, so let's go through these steps and see if we could do some problems. So question A here, go ahead and draw your line. So when I ever ask you what's the first step, don't say draw the balance beam. That's really not a step. Now remember, what we're going to do is first see if we could simplify anything. So treat this side of the equation separately from this. It's like two separate sides, so two separate expressions there. So when we look at the left side, hopefully you notice that there's a 4b and a 2b. Combine those like we just learned. So that's what you first want to do. There's no parentheses here, so no distributing. So 4b and 2b is simply 6b. Doing something like this, doing inverse operations. This is what some students will do. Okay, you will never do that. X negative 2b on one side, then we should have brought it over here. That at least you could do that, but that's not proper order. So I don't want to see you doing any of this stuff until you've combined terms first. So we're simply combining these like we learned, 2b and 4b. That should make 6b. And then bring down that plus 6. We haven't done anything with it. Plus 6. On this side, there's nothing to combine. We cannot combine the 36 and the 3b, so we just write it down. Okay, so now there's no more like terms. I cannot combine this 6b with this 3b and get 9b because they're on opposite sides of the equal sign. This is like a wall. You can't go from one side to the other. So don't think you could do that. It says combine like terms on the same side of the equal sign. Okay, so now you should know what to do. It's simplified, so we should eliminate. Get rid of a letter. We can't have b's on both sides. Okay, so therefore, I would just subtract 3b here, subtract 3b here. Those would go away. 6b minus 3b is 3b, plus 6 equals 36. Now we're going to isolate this algebraic term, so we want to get this guy all by itself, so subtract 6, subtract 6. This goes away, and I bring 3b equals 30. And now simply we're going to solve by getting the b by itself by doing the opposite of multiplying by 3. B equals 10. So you can see we combine like terms first, then we eliminated algebraic term, then we isolated algebraic term, and then finally we solved. So there is one equation. Let's look at question B here. Notice that we have a parentheses here, so according to our rules we should always distribute first. So I'm going to distribute the 1/2 times 4 and 1/2 times 2. That's a lot easier than you think. Okay, 1/2 is just like dividing by 2. So half of 4d, that would just be 2d. And half of 2, well, that would just be 1. That's pretty easy. That's a 35 there, not a 55. All right, so we distributed. Is there any like terms that we can combine? Well, there's nothing we could combine, and there's nothing to combine on the right side, so we do not have to combine like terms. Do we need to eliminate? Is there a letter on both sides? No, so we don't have to eliminate either. So you're not always going to do every step. You just check for them. We need to isolate the algebraic term, get this guy by itself. So subtract 1, subtract 1. 2b equals 34. And now I divide by 2, and b equals 18. Okay, so there's that one, not so bad. All right, let's try. As you can see, this is a pretty big one here. This is much more complicated than you had to do last year in 7th grade. This should involve everything we just learned. So we're going to try to simplify both sides. So remember, treat this side separate than this side until we get to the solve part. So as you can see on the left side, we have to distribute. Now be careful, this is a -3, not just a 3. Distribute this into there. The 4a we're doing nothing with right now, so bring the 4a down. That's -3a. And -3 times -2. Watch your signs. That's a negative times a negative, which would be a +6. Okay, and now on the right side, you can see we have distributing also. So I will go ahead and do that. 2 times 3a, that's 6a, and 2 times negative 2, it's negative 4. Okay, so we just distributed. Next, we should check for combining like terms. So again, just look at the left side. Here we go. It's coming for me. Just look at the left side and the right side as separate problems right now. So that we have a 4a and a negative 3a, we should be able to combine those. And 4a take away 3a would just be 1a. Plus 6. Over here on the right side, nothing to combined, so just bring it down. 6a minus 4. All right, so we have simplified. Notice that there's nothing more that you could do on the left side. We can't combine any like terms. Over here, we cannot combine any like terms. So these two sides are completely simplified. Now we just solve them. Remember, we cannot have a letter on both sides, so I'm going to eliminate one of my variables. So these would go away. I would bring my 6 down. 6a take away 1a would be 5a. Bring down my negative 4. So now I have to isolate my algebraic term, get that guy by itself. So I'm going to do the opposite of negative 4, which is plus 4. There's my inverse operations coming into play there. So 6 plus 4 is 10. Bring down my 5a, these cancel out, and finally I'm just going to solve by doing the opposite of multiplying by 5, which is dividing by 5. This becomes 2 equals a. Those cross out. And remember, try to write your answer as a equals 2. It's just typically how we like to read these. As you can see, this was a very big equation, and if you could solve this thing, this is about as hard as it gets for us. So we started off by distributing first. So first step, we had to distribute. Then we had to combine like terms. Then we had to eliminate an algebraic term. Then we had to isolate the algebraic term. And finally, we had to solve. So there's all 5 steps in one problem. Okay, now I would really like you to try these on your own, not rush through them. Do the steps that I taught you and try to make sure you can solve these. So please try these next 4 problems on your own. So hit pause and then let's see how you do. All right, let's see how you did with this. So number 1, hopefully you notice. Let me shrink this down so you can see. There we go. Number 1, we have to distribute. We have a negative 3 outside the parentheses, so you should have distributed that. So negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. And negative 3 times negative 2n. Be careful. Negative times negative is positive. Students make those mistakes all the time. Okay, so now I just have to isolate. So I just have to get rid of this negative 3 by doing the opposite. This becomes 66 equals 6n. Now I just have to solve. So not a lot of steps on this one. So this would become 11 equals n, or n equals 11. Hopefully that's what you have. Okay, over here, it looks like we have more distributing. So anytime you see parentheses, that's the first thing you should look for. On the left side, nothing to do. I cannot combine those, so I'm just going to bring it down. Negative 3 times 2n, that's negative 6n. And negative times negative, that's positive 12. Okay, no combining like terms on this one because remember we're going to treat this as a wall, so nothing combined. So now I have to eliminate. So I'm going to add 6n. Some of you guys might have added the n. You'll still get the same answer. Add 6n here. Now you should know that if a letter does not have a number in front of it, you can put a 1 like that. So therefore I bring down my negative 8. Negative 1 and positive 6, that's plus 5n equals the 12. Okay, so now I have to isolate, so add 8, 5n equals 20, divide by 5, n equals 4. All right, hopefully you got that answer. Try the last 2 here. I'm getting close to the end of time, so I have to go kind of quick on these. I don't know if I'm going to make it. So distribute, negative 29. 10a minus 5 plus 2a. Looks like I have to combine like terms. So negative 29 equals 12a minus 5. Isolate by adding 5. This would make negative 24 equals 12a. Divide by 12, negative 2 equals a. There we go. Okay, trying this last one. I might run out of time. Distribute. Negative 8 plus 4y plus 3y equals 3y minus 12. Combine like terms, so I could combine those two. So negative 8 plus 7y equals 3y minus 12.